Hi, it's Ramsey Dewey with the JX Fight Club in Shanghai, China. I got a question. The other day, while teaching my MMA class, I was teaching some grappling technique. We were about to do some drills. Now, when I say the word drill, I make a very important semantic distinction between drill and sequence. A lot of people say drill, but they mean sequence. A drill has resistance. Both athletes, both students have a very specific goal, and they are fighting to accomplish that goal against a resisting partner. A sequence is where we practice the movement without resistance. We practice where to put the hands and the feet, where to put the arms and the legs, how to move the body with a cooperating partner so that we can learn the bare bones of it, the skeleton of the movement. If we don't do the sequence first, then it's going to be difficult to drill that sequence against resistance. Okay? I've heard people throw out that saying, drillers are killers. And then I watch the way these guys actually train, and are they drilling? No, they're sequencing. And that is an important step, but it's just one step. So we were about to do a drill. That means with resistance, remember. One of my students raised his hand, and he said, Coach, should we only go like 50% or 60% power? Remember, it was a grappling drill. I told him, let's stop the class, talk about this for a minute. Now, I don't like stopping the class, but I think this is very important because I hate it when people say, let's go 50% or 60% or 1% or 1,000% or any percent while drilling or sparring. That's problematic. Now, with striking, it's clearly problematic because one guy's 50% is the same as the other guy's 2,000%. Percentage is very variable, depending on your size, your punching power, your relative perception of pain, how good you are at rolling with the punches. Not everybody receives the same punch the same way. Not everyone can do that. So what I might be able to just roll off of me like water off a duck's back, someone who's really rigid, they're going to absorb 100% of that, 50%. And that 50% is going to feel like malicious intentions. Now let's go back to grappling. Grappling is an interesting martial art because we can go close to 100% the same way we would use those grappling techniques in a fight, in a grappling tournament, in an MMA competition, in a street fight, in a self-defense situation. We can go close to 100%, if not 100%, without risk of serious injuries, as long as we follow a few very simple guidelines. Don't break your training partner, or you don't get a new one. That's what I always tell my students. Right? So if we are grappling, and I have you caught in the armbar, and I've got the opportunity to punch my hips into that and break your arm in half, I'm not going to do that, because I'm a good training partner. And I understand that if I break my training partners, they won't grapple with me anymore, and then I am not going to improve my grappling, and neither are they. And everybody's going to be sad. If I have the opportunity to slam my partner in a way that would injure them, I'm not going to do it. I'm not. For the same reason. I don't want to break my training partners so that I can keep training with them, so that they can keep training with me, so we can learn something. If I've got a heel hook on my training partner, I'm not going to crank on that. I'm not. I'm going to hold it, see if I could get myself in a position where I could finish it, then I'm going to let go and try for something else. Why? Because training partners with torn ACLs don't make very good training partners, and training partners who tear their partner's knees up are horrible training partners. So don't break your training partner or you don't get a new one. Follow that simple guideline and you'll be fine going 100% with grappling. I don't need to slow down my movements. I don't need to modify the amount of strength or power I'm using, because the objective of grappling is not to knock somebody out or inflict blunt force trauma. And if I tell new students to go at a certain level of power in grappling, that's very confusing. Because new students don't understand how power works in grappling in the first place. Because they're always flexing everything, and they never breathe, and they get tired really fast, and they get injured all the time because they're so tight and so tense. So I tell them, relax, keep breathing, and if everything else goes out the window, try to be the guy on top, because the guy on top is usually winning the fight. Relax, keep breathing, work to be the guy on top. So, let's go back to striking for a minute. I never tell my students to spar at a certain percentage of power. Ever. Not even 10%. First of all, that number is completely arbitrary, as I mentioned before. But also, basically 3 ways to spar, I would say. 1, fight. It is what it is. 2, light contact, where we're touching each other. I mean, there will be some force behind that, obviously, because as long as we're moving our hand with any degree of speed, there's force behind it. There's power behind it. Ideally, not enough to injure, knock out, lacerate, etc. That's why even when we train, even when we do sequences, we must abide by rule number 1 of all fights, which is protect yourself at all times. I've talked about this before, and I'll talk about it again. When you see guys go in the ring and they make a gentleman's agreement to only go 10% or whatever arbitrary number they decide on, here's what happens. They go in there, and one guy thinks, all right, my 100% is strong enough to punch through bricks, because I'm a tough guy. So my 10% should be enough to, sting him this much. So he goes out there and he lands a punch that stings the other guy that much. Lets him know, this is 10% of my power. Because as soon as we add a number to it, what do men do? We try to meet those numbers. It's like a goal. That's not a limitation, that's a goal. Then what does the second man do? The man who just got hit with that punch that stung him. He's going to think, ouch, ooh, that hurt. That doesn't seem like 10% to me. So So what does he do? He retaliates. And he throws a punch that's a little bit harder. He lands it. And it stings a little bit more. So the first fighter, he thinks, oh, he's not abiding by the gentlemanly agreement to go 10%. That was maybe 12, 13%. I'm going to give him 20. So he gives his best idea of what a 20% punch would be. The other guy takes it. He's like, he's escalating this. So will I. So fighter number 2 brings it up a notch. Fighter number 1 brings it up another notch. Fighter number 2 brings it up another notch, and it keeps going up until they're going 10,000%, and somebody gets hurt. And then they don't get to train anymore. And they definitely can't do it tomorrow. And that's a lousy way to train, guys. But grappling, we can go 100% every single day without risk of serious injury as long as we abide by that simple rule. Don't break your training partners. If you're in an opportune position to apply a submission that would injure them seriously, don't do it. You'll give them plenty of time to tap out. And if they're not tapping out because they're too proud or too stupid or too ignorant of the submission, let go and try something else. If you know that you could have won that sparring match, we don't win sparring matches, but if you could have finished that submission or whatever, if you know that, just let go. All right, you already got that little victory in your mind, which is the only place it's real anyway. So we learned that against this guy in this particular situation, we can get that heel hook if we really need it. We don't need to tear the knee up. And those injuries are nasty. My assistant coach just recently, not from a heel hook, but just a goofy accident, tore every ligament in one of his knees. Poor guy. Man, had to have major surgery. Now, if that was one of my students that did that to him, we would have had more than a serious talk. Don't injure your training partners. That's easy to do. Be present of where you are. Be present of where they are. Be mindful of your surroundings. Don't crash into other people. Don't crash into the walls. If you got your legs tangled up in a human pretzel, don't start jerking around. If somebody's caught you in a leg lock, don't start flopping around like some sort of dying alligator. If you don't know how to technically improve your position, then learn how. Spazzing out's just going to get you hurt. So relax. Keep breathing. Be the guy on top. Do that, and you're probably going to win those fights. Thanks for watching. Get out there and train.